Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game is worth your time and cash. Today's game is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It's not Borderlands 4, technically, though it is Borderlands gameplay set in Tiny Tina's D&D world. Is it worth taking the journey into Wonderland? Tiny Tina's Wonderland is released on Xbox, PC, Epic Games Store only, as well as PlayStation. It does feature cross-play, which I really like. Game's launch price was $60 for last gen, $70 for next gen, and the game will take you about 16 to 20 hours to finish the first time. But these games thrive on having a decent amount of post-game content. So what exactly is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? Well, it's a looter shooter that is essentially the fourth Borderlands game, but this time with a fantasy flavor and a heavy emphasis on character customization. You play as the player character who has crash landed with your two buddies on Tiny Tina's planet, where she's playing bunkers and badasses with you. The entire game is framed as a D&D style session, with the world being a mix of fantasy with guns, Borderlands references, and more tossed into the mix. The core gameplay is very simple. This is a first-person shooter with an emphasis on tons of zany guns of different ammo types, of which you will loot thousands of over the course of a playthrough. The guns often share tons of weird and unique characteristics, such as freezing enemies, lighting them on fire, turning into a hydra when you reload, and so on. Additionally, you'll select a class at the start of the game, and leveling up not only gives you points to invest in a skill tree, but honest-to-God character stats, something that wasn't present in the previous Borderlands game. These mostly just raise your passive percentages like crit damage, etc., but it does allow you to customize your build more richly than the previous Borderlands games. The game is divided into both big zones as well as smaller encounter zones, all of which are connected via a world map that is presented as a miniature board. Smaller encounters, including random ones, are mostly just combat arenas that exist to give you loot and XP, while larger zones consist of both towns and richer areas full of side quests as well as main quest progression. Like in the previous game, the story revolves around a lot of humor, which will be hit or miss depending if you're on board for the Borderlands style, sardonic, and also in-your-face style of jokes. I think people either love or hate this, and this one's not going to change your mind either way. It is cut-in-the-wool Borderlands humor. It also has a few cute instances of the game story influencing the characters in the real world, which helps flesh it out. So overall, this is another small step forward for the Borderlands games in terms of mixing up the design, except this time with a more fantasy-esque flavor and some general changes. So what do I like about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? Well, the multi-classing and the customization that comes with it is a godsend. This is the best part of the game. It allows you to create absolutely insane synergistic characters in all the best ways, which I love. Also, the addition of new equipables to augment your abilities, and particularly spells, which replace grenades, are fantastic. Spells having a massive variety of ability and interactions that make item pickups feel fresh and fun all the way through. And lastly, I really like the new overworld concept. Well, at first I was a little bit iffy on it. It does a great job of connecting zones in a way that's easy and quick to traverse, and the addition of both smaller and random combat encounters complements the game's loot and shoot loop very well. When it comes to the bad, basic Borderlands loop has not changed at all, particularly side quests being mostly go here and get this, go here and kill this, as they have been in the previous games. They have a good amount of humor, but the fundamentals are still the same. Secondly, large areas still do not have enough fast travel points, meaning you're going to have to do a ton of walking through areas to complete quests, which is boring. Why is this still a problem in the series? And lastly, bugs that haven't been fixed since Borderlands 3 are still present here, along with clunky menus and UI, making it feel more like a big chunky DLC rather than an actual new game. As you know, our games here on our 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And I'm actually a bit torn on this one. In terms of a Borderlands game, this is far and away the best one. The rich customization of classes, the abundance of spells, and the improved world map with combat encounters all work really well with this formula. However, the core gameplay loop hasn't changed since the first Borderlands game, with fairly basic side quests and a standard loot and shoot cycle. Even as a fan of these games, the lack of innovation makes me say it is a maybe consider, and I'd suggest waiting until it's on sale for about 30 to 40 bucks. It's a great addition to the Borderlands franchise, but this seriously is in need of a bigger injection of new ideas beyond just a fantasy setting. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments, and go out there and enjoy Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.